Chapter 19. In come Dr. Buzzard. We go to church, we shake hands, and we sing spirituals when I was growing up, but we believed in God, Dr. Buzzard, and the Bolito Man. I've told you about our belief in God and in the Bolito Man already, and now it's time to tell you about Dr. Buzzard. The church was a huge part of our lives. We went there to worship and to settle disputes. People were called before the elders for adultery, stealing, fist fights, name callings, and to try and prove who was the rightful father of a child. But we had Dr. Buzzard too. Let's say I tried the church and that didn't work. I'm still angry, so I need to do something a little more drastic. I'll try Dr. Buzzard. And in come Dr. Buzzard. Dr. Buzzard was the root doctor, the conjurer, the worker of black magic. He could put a spell on you and do you bodily harm. He could lift a spell off of you. He could even turn around a spell and throw it back on the one who put it on you to begin with. Some places people call that voodoo or hoodoo, but over here we mostly say a root or mojo to refer to the mysterious roots and herbs Dr. Buzzard used. No one was safe from root, absolutely no one, and the old people had a hard time believing in natural illness. It was hard for them to take the word of a doctor about anything, even if someone persuaded them and said, take him to the doctor, take him to the doctor. If the doctor didn't find an instant cure, then the illness was blamed on something differently, entirely different, root. Somebody fixed somebody. When my Aunt Della got breast cancer, Grandma refused to believe it was cancer. She said those doctors removed Della's breast for nothing, that somebody worked root on her daughter. She went to Brunswick and got Aunt Della out of that hospital and brought her back over here. Aunt Della died at home, and after that, Grandma didn't believe in hospitals anymore. If people suspect someone of doing some evil things to them, they get wary. I'm thinking of one man over here in his 80s who believed that someone tried to put root on him once. It happened 40 years ago. But from that day on, he always has been on the watch for anything that's not normal, and he would not any food he did not cook himself, because you might try to put something in it and do him harm. He was sick with pneumonia in the hospital once, and the whole time he was there, he refused to eat. He didn't know those cooks. Those cooks didn't have no reason to do him harm, but he did not trust them. The doctor had to let him go early because he would not eat. He went and stayed at his niece's house in Brunswick then, his own niece now, and would not eat anything from her either. Is that deep seated in him. When I was growing up, I was completely surrounded by people who believe in root. Everybody over here believed, and I especially believed because Grandpa was known for doing some root. Now, Grandpa was a religious person. He prayed to God and he read his Bible every day. But he fit into the category of believing in God, Dr. Buzzard, and the Bolito Man. See, the old people didn't put their faith in God alone. God had his place, but so did Dr. Buzzard, and so did the Bolito Man. And it was almost like they didn't believe in one form of the supernatural any more than they did the others. It was like they said, I'm going to pray to God, but God take his time to answer. So I'm going to consult with Dr. Buzzard and use his magic potion, which will bring me faster results. I can also see some of the old people thinking, maybe God intends for me to use this magic potion anyway. He granted me that knowledge, so it must be okay, because they knew, and the good Lord above knew too, that they needed some extra luck. Grandpa dealt in white root mostly. Like if a man came and said, can you help me with something so I can get a job? I'm down on my luck. He would give him something for good fortune. If a woman came and said, I got a sore foot that's bothering me, will you help me? Grandpa would give her a root to ward away illness. It was just like it it was just like it was with the ambulance he handed out. He did the kind of things that gave people hope and bettered their lives, so he was well regarded. Some of his roots grew on the island. He got other roots in powder mail order from an outfit in Chicago and one in Atlanta. I know he got his High John the Conqueror root and Little John by mail. Those two roots are pretty popular because they're for love problems. High John is the bigger and the more potent of the two. Some people say that Grandpa helped him turn Root back onto somebody they suspect of doing evil to him. He may have reversed the root if he figured that there was no rightful reason for that evil spell to have been cast to begin with, but I don't think he makes a practice of it. The knowledge of root came to Sapelo and all the sea islands with our ancestors. In Africa, voodoo, juju was an evil spirit, and wanga was a charm. The first Dr. Buzzard and Sea Islands got off the boat and began practicing root in St. Helena, South Carolina. It was said to be as powerful as a buzzard and to have the patience of a buzzard, and that's how he got his name. Ever since then, root workers in the Sea Islands have been known as Dr. Buzzard, and it always has been said that the ones in South Carolina have the strongest root of all. Sapelo was not ever really known for his root the way that South Carolina islands were, or even the way some places in Georgia, such as Savannah, were. We always had at least one or two root workers on Sapelo, though. When Papa was young, old man Scipio Bell worked root and was good at it. Old man Skip Bell had a little store and he kept a fix around the door, a spell, so that if somebody broke in when he wasn't there, he would know. And sure enough, one day a little boy broke in and helped himself to some red bird crackers. He started eating them, and then when he went to leave, he got out on the front porch and he froze. He just froze. That little boy couldn't move for trying. Mrs. Skip got back and got him a switch and gave the little boy the switching of his life, and that little boy didn't ever bother Mrs. Skip's shop again. Mrs. Skip had passed on by the time I came along. Mama Lizzie, I'll call her Mama Lizzie because I don't intend to use her real name since there's no good reason I know of for all of our secrets to come to light and plenty of reasons for this one not to, was the one that worked root back then. The very woman at whose house Papa fell asleep after selling his ox Bully and lost all the money he got for his cow. There were so many legends about Mama Lizzie, and a lot of them happened before I was born. That how can how can I say which ones are true or which ones are partially true? I can only tell you that some what the old people told me. And one thing is for sure, I have never heard of her doing good root. If you wanted to put an evil spell on somebody, you go see Mama Lizzie and she would mix you up a magic potion, the old people said. She would tell you how to slip the potion into somebody's drink or food and it would turn that person completely crazy or worse. Her potions would poison you, but they weren't any of the normal kind of poison that you could get your hands on. Yeah, child, I think that one might have been poison, people would say. But they believed that poison had to be conjured up or put together by someone of stature. A root doctor could do it and get away with it because root doctors could do anything. They had strange powers the rest of us didn't have. If you or I tried slipping some poison in someone's drink, we would get arrested and put in jail, but with the root doctor, no one would be the wiser. The old people thought that the old people thought that people with real dark complexions must be workers of root. The darker your complexion and the redder your eyes, the more people thought you were a conjurer. I don't remember Mama Lizzie's eyes being red. That would have been unusual for sure, but she definitely fit the first part. She was a very dark woman, one of the darkest women here. Mama Lizzie had been around a long time, so she was kind of old when I got to know her. You could tell she had been quite pretty when she was young, though, and she still was a good looking woman with strong features and long hair. She liked wearing dark clothes, so she had her own look, a mysterious look, and the air that hovered above her seemed charged. She stood erect as a person can stand, and she looked straight at you, and she demanded your full attention and respect. You had to look at her when she looked at you, even if you were a kid, and you weren't supposed to look an older person in the face. She compelled you almost. She had a certain power, and she wasn't afraid of anything. Nothing intimidated her. She would always have moonshine to sell, so her house was a regular stop in the community. The men would go there and sit and talk and drink, and some of the women would too. But the men folks couldn't stay away. She drew them to her. I knew that it was her house that Papa had stopped by the time he sold our ox Bully, and the money he got for Bully was stolen. I heard Grandmama and Mom and the other ladies talk about her doing root when they thought I wasn't listening, because root wasn't a subject that they taught the kids about. That was kept secret till we got a little older. I knew there was something about her, something powerful, but I didn't think much about any of that. She could be nice to little children and she would give us snacks to eat when we went to her house, just like the other ladies did. She made a delicious pound cake, and that was enough right there to get me to stop by her house. One day, when I wasn't any more than 6 years old, I was over playing in Mama Lizzie's yard, and some other kids and I saw for myself that Mama Lizzie had a mean side to her, a very mean side. Mama Lizzie was in her yard, and a neighbor lady came over to tell Mama Lizzie that her puppy had killed one of her chickens. It was a young chicken, a bitty. I saw you puppy inside my chicken house killing my biddies. You have to do something about that dog, the lady said. She probably expected Mama Lizzie to tie up her puppy and whip it to try to break it out of the habit because that's what most people did. That may sound cruel to you, but you simply couldn't have a chicken eating or an egg eating dog. Everyone on Sapelo kept a few chickens, and those chickens and their eggs were food. You needed them for survival, just like everyone else you raised. Mama Lizzie turned and called a puppy to her, and this cute little black thing with a long tail came running to her. And when it did, she grabbed a hold of his back legs and she swung it up against a big oak tree and killed it. It was the most horrible thing I ever seen. It was her puppy, all right, but it wasn't her puppy to bash up against the tree. I was going, gee whiz. If she did that to a puppy, what's she gonna do to me? I stayed away from that house for a long time, and I began taking the stories about Mama Lizzie more seriously than I did before. Everyone on the island was afraid of her, including Captain Frank. She had to be the only black person on the island he was afraid of. Most white people on the coast did not believe in root at all, and so it had no power over them. But Captain Frank's family had been in these parts for a long time. He was totally entwined in a world where he knew that people practice root. He would have seen peculiar things happen that he couldn't explain away except for Mojo, and he had the fear of root in him. Captain Frank must have thought she could put the evil hand on him if he didn't watch out because he would stiffen up if he saw Mama Lizzie coming. His body would actually stiffen. If he was going out the door of his office and he saw her, he would turn around and go back into the building and close the door behind him. He was absolutely afraid of her, and Mama Lizzie knew as much, and she was proud of it. He was a power in just about everybody else's life, but she had him in the palm of her hand. Some folks say Mama Lizzie had killed a man once with her root. Captain Frank heard the talk, but he didn't have any proof whatsoever of it, so he couldn't do a thing about it. He had to live with her being on the island every day, and the way he did it was to make sure he didn't cross her or do anything that would make her angry. That wasn't so odd really, except for who he was, because the rest of us weren't gonna tangle with her either, not lightly anyway. The incident that raised everyone's suspicion took place when I was growing up. One of the things I learned from living on a small island where our roots have been for 200 years is that our traditions get passed on, yeah, but so do our hurts and angers. That can be handed down from generation to generation too. This particular hurt came about when Mama Lizzie's sister got pregnant, and the word spread over the island that Thomas, I'll call him, was responsible. He denied it in no uncertain terms, and he said, well, if she is, it's not mine, and I'm not going to marry her. Some people said that a certain other young man was really the father, but Mama Lizzie's sister said Thomas was the father. Mama Lizzie believed her own sister naturally, and when Thomas refused to marry her, Mama Lizzie said she was going to do something about it. His family was frightened by that and told Thomas he absolutely should not go to Mama Lizzie's house again. Under no circumstances should he go, but if you do go, they added, because they knew he stopped by there a good bit. Don't eat or drink anything from her house. He went to Mama Lizzie's with some other guys late one afternoon, believing that if he was with them, she wouldn't do anything to him. And Mama Lizzie treated him so nice that he figured, well, she can't be that mad at me. The others were eating and drinking Mama Lizzie's stuff, so Thomas did too, because there again, he thought he would be safe as long as he was eating and drinking the same things that they were. Eventually, night fell and it was time to leave. Mama Lizzie was still being nice to them, and she said, come on, take a drink. You can carry more with you. She went into the back room where she kept her whiskey and some little half-pint bottles, and she filled their bottles one at a time while she was back there. And then she came back out and sent them home with their individual bottles. Thomas started walking back to the bluff, and that's about a 7-mile walk. And afterwards, he took a and after a while, he decided to take a sip from that bottle. He opened the whiskey and took a drink or two, and right away he started feeling sick. He threw the rest of the bottle away and kept on going, slowly now because he wasn't feeling too well. He would have had plenty of time before reaching the bluff to know how wrong he was to think Mama Lizzie was going to forget her anger that quick. He made it home to Raccoon Bluff, but he was sick as he could be. His brother took one look at him and asked Thomas where he'd been and what he had to eat and drink. At Mama Lizzie's. Are you a fool? You're not supposed to go to that lady's house. She accusing you of getting her sister pregnant. Where's the bottle? Thomas told his brother where he threw the bottle at, and his family went and found it, and their worst fears were confirmed. The rest of the whiskey in that bottle was green as gall. When Thomas had been drinking from that bottle, the whiskey was crystal clear, but now that whiskey was green as gall. Thomas was ill from then on. His head hurt like crazy. All of his complaints were about the pain in his head. His family took him to a doctor on the other side, but the doctor couldn't find anything wrong with his head. Thomas bounced back and forth for a while. Some days he would feel good, and some days he felt like his whole head was going to bust wide open, and he got worse and worse. He lingered, but he suffered until he died. After he died, his family said that Thomas would still be living if he hadn't stopped by Mama Lizzie's. They believed that firmly, and I don't think there was a soul over here who didn't believe it also. They didn't know exactly who that child that Mama Lizzie's sister was expecting belonged to, but they were angry and would tell you openly, Mama Lizzie shouldn't have picked on our brother. We're going to turn that spell back on her family. They went to see a root doctor on the other side, and I don't know how it was done, but the hand of evil was turned back on the girl who accused Thomas of fathering her child, and she developed the same complaints and the same illness. That was proof to his family that Thomas did not die a natural death, that his death was caused by root, because you were not supposed to be able to turn root around on a family unless someone in that family was guilty of having cast the first spell. It was Mama Lizzie's sister's turn to suffer then, and she got worse and worse, and she died when her baby, a girl, was 8 months old. The whole thing happened in about 14 months. Mama Lizzie's sister sounded the alarm when she was 3 months pregnant. Her baby was born 6 months later. 2 months after that, she died. It was all over for both her and Thomas. They were gone just like that. So Mama Lizzie took the baby girl and raised her. You probably heard how history repeats itself. Well, it came very close this time. The baby girl grew up, and when she became of age, she got pregnant. She told Mama Lizzie who was responsible, just like her mother did, but at least her accusation was known to be right. She set her sights on a young man on the island, and he was going with another young lady. And according to the talk on the island, Mama Lizzie's niece threw herself at him. She enticed him, and he gave in into temptation. He might have told himself that he was just doing what any normal young man would do, but he was caught up because he didn't mean for it to happen, but she got pregnant. He didn't want to marry her, and he didn't want to marry into the family. He tried to think of how he could get out of it, but his father said, "No, you better do the right thing because you know what happened to Thomas. You better stand and face the music." So out of fear that Mama Lizzie would put root on him or someone in his family, he reluctantly gave up to the lady who he loved to marry the one who enticed him. The young man and Mama Lizzie's niece got married and had the child, and some others too. And he loved his kids out of this world, but it's kind of a sad story. He always regretted the fact that he had to break the heart of the girl he loved to marry the other one, and I think he resented being made to do that. Mama Lizzie's niece was trapped in her own way too. She got the man she had her eyes on, but she spent the rest of her life hungering for true love, that real love that she could have had. The legends continued to weave around Mama Lizzie. There was always something else to talk about, always another juicy morsel to chew on. Some of the men from the community were fishing down in Big Hole off Cabrera Beach one day, and they saw some flames inland. They rowed their boat back to shore and rushed in because we didn't have a fire department, and they still don't. You had to reach the scene quick to put out a fire of any kind, and this was totally different from any kind of fire they had ever seen. The flames had the weirdest colors: blue, green, red. Mama Lizzie's house was burning down. The flames had just started shooting up all of a sudden. They had gotten so big so fast there wasn't much time to haul water from a well and throw it on the Mama Lizzie's house. Was a regular little wooden house like all of us in the island had, and within minutes the house was gone. This was one time that everyone on the island felt bad for her because to lose your house is an awful thing. But Captain Frank put word to what everybody else was thinking. He had seen the strange flames, but even if he hadn't, people would have come running to tell him. And according to legend, Captain Frank said, "I'm sorry Mama Lizzie's house burned down, but I sure hope her damn root burned up with it." That house was long gone when I was a kid, and Mama Lizzie lived in another one, but I knew where the first one had originally stood. Grandma said they never found any good reason why Mama Lizzie's house burned down. Maybe she was doing too many evil things just for the sake of evil, and maybe the evil spirits from that stuff she was messing with had turned on and burned it down. There was a pecan tree right by the house site, and people said that Mama Lizzie had buried her bottles of poison under that tree. The pecan tree never bore good pecans after the house burned down, and the old people took that as proof that Mama Lizzie had put her poisons there. I heard the talk, of course, and I was a curious kid, so when the pecans fell one fall, I went by and picked pecans up off the ground and tried them, and you couldn't eat them for nothing. They were bitter, very bitter, like they were cursed. There's a lot we don't understand about root and black magic and all the beliefs in the supernatural, really, all the things you can't prove and all that I call the unseen. And it was that way with Mama Lizzie too. School would get out every afternoon at 3:15 p.m. and Asbury and I would walk home. I was in the third grade at this time, so it would have been about 1952 when we were walking home from school. We were just beginning to get fairly close to our house when I noticed this big black bird walking down the road. It was bigger than a crow. The only black bird we have on this island bigger than that is the buzzard. I could swear it was a buzzard. It was big like a buzzard. It was black like a buzzard. But why was a buzzard walking down the road instead of flying? We slowed our pace to watch it, and it kept walking down the road. That big black bird never got off the road. We were just behind it, and we kept walking, and that bird kept walking and never flew. I began to get a little funny feeling inside. The buzzard kept walking down the road just like that. It was a natural thing to do. But it wasn't. The bird stayed on the road until a little after it passed where we lived, and then off into the woods it went. And Asbury and I ran into the house. Mama, Mama, this big black bird was walking down the road in front of us and it never flew. Mama looked up from her mending and said, Mama Lizzie died today. Just like that. No explanation offered and none needed. Mama Lizzie died today.